now. Give that a minute. Great. All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Natasha Janik. I'm a product marketer here at Salesforce for our new loyalty management product that just launched yesterday. If you weren't able to catch that big idea session, it will be on demand. Please take a look. But today we will have some retail experts from Salesforce as well as our partners from PK discussing how the drivers of customer loyalty have evolved and really what retailers can do to adapt. So before we get started, just wanted to allow our panelists to introduce themselves. So we'll start with our partners at PK.
Hi, everybody. Nice to speak with you all today. My name is Clay Waltonhouse. I'm the Managing Director for our Integrated Loyalty Solutions practice at PK.
And hi, everybody. Martin Mahalchin, happy to be here today. I lead the retail industry team at PK.
And hi, everybody. This is Alex Drinker on the Salesforce side. I lead the retail industry practice here for Salesforce.
And hi, everyone. Gavin Frank, also with Salesforce. I run solutions and ecosystem strategy for the retail and consumer goods industries.
Great. Now that is everyone. So before we get started on the panel discussion, I just kind of wanted to frame some of the things that we'll be talking about today. Now, we know that loyalty has been evolving for years. You know, the earn and burn of traditional programs just aren't enough to keep customers enticed. So think about the number of programs that each of us are a member of and how many we're actually active in. And consumers share their data in order to get those personalized, relevant experiences. So we've really seen many retailers, you know, shifting their loyalty strategy. And we can't ignore, you know, events over the last year. We've seen that urgency toward digital transformation amplified. Building and maintaining customer loyalty is critical to every business, but it's becoming increasingly more difficult when customers have endless options. So we're going to discuss some of the evolved drivers of customer loyalty, the rise of digital, increased personalization, and loyalty as a strategy, and really what retailers can do to adapt in the coming year. So I'm going to kick things off, you know, with the question around digital. So in the last year, we saw a pretty swift shift to digital. That feels like a tongue twister, whether retailers were ready or not. And, you know, how has that impacted customer loyalty and with customers having more options and more channels for interaction?
Yeah, Natasha, I'll start that one off. You know, I don't want to minimize like how tough the initial months of the pandemic shutdowns were for the industry and how tough the environment remains for, you know, certain categories and certain retailers. But we did see with that initial rapid shift that companies that already had a strong loyalty base and a strong membership base had a relative advantage with that shift to everything being digital for several months, and then the continued persistence of digital being a bigger channel. So, you know, some PK clients like Nike with Nike Plus and Vans with Vans Family, they really outperformed their category in that spring timeframe. And if you think about it from the consumer's point of view, you know, if you're already a member with that brand, you're already maybe engaging with their content, you're logged in when you're go to their site, or you're already logged into their app and have it on your phone. That's just a much more seamless place to shift your purchasing than having to do guest checkout or a new account set up at a retailer that you haven't interacted with in the digital space before.
Yeah, and it's all great points. And if I could just kind of layer into some of that, I think this is an unbelievable time for retailers to rethink or lean into their loyalty strategy. You know, results from our Connected Consumer Report found that customers interact with an average of 9 different touch points. And really that's a challenge when it comes to reach, but a huge opportunity when it comes to the availability of data. And you know, as you said, this surge in digital is really allowing consumers to spend more and more time on their phones and various digital channels, which in turn is producing a ton of data. And when joining a loyalty program, customers are agreeing to share their information with a retailer in exchange for a more personalized, consistent experience. And so I think on the flip side of that, brands and retailers, need to understand that in exchange for providing that information about themselves, customers are really expecting a hyper-personalized incentive and experiential rewards program.
So when you think about, those customer expectations and the expectation of personalization across channels, what are some of the hurdles that retailers and brands are facing with both growing and nurturing customer loyalty in the face of rapid change?
Yeah, so one of the things you really have to focus on when you have a program, especially if you've recently launched a program in an environment like this, you have to have the resourcing and wherewithal to keep it fresh, right? So you can't just kind of have a successful launch and then sit on your laurels. You have to constantly monitor the environment, provide fresh content, provide fresh benefits and services, to keep it fresh for consumers, keep them engaged and interested, and also keep it, responsive as the needs of your base change, either due to external factors like, what's been going on for the last year, or just, shifting consumer sentiments and tastes.
Yeah, and to further that point, I mean, there's been new engagement channels, there's been new ways of doing business with retailers and brands that have come up. So to make sure that you have all of the systems in place to drive that experience that's going to drive customer loyalty across these new emerging areas, thinking like curbside, and now that we're coming out of holiday, things like what's the return process look like? So all of these different pieces are, from an engagement perspective, are a way to potentially drive loyalty, but also a way to potentially, lose a customer if you don't do it right, and drive that consistent experience and make sure that you're driving personalization regardless of how they're engaging with you as a brand.
Now, I think we've talked a little bit about loyalty programs and loyalty strategies, and I just wanted to throw the question out there of what's the difference and, what's the importance of having that overarching strategy?
Yeah, I can tackle that one, Natasha. So, I think this is a really interesting question. It's one that we are discussing regularly with a lot of different clients. And loyalty is a space where I think sometimes the semantics and the taxonomy kind of carries some baggage in terms of how people think about the space and therefore how they might kind of relate to the strategy and execution. So, for us, we always start by talking about loyalty as an outcome, right? Which is the idea that loyalty is really a state of relationship, that a brand earns through delivery of value, right? That is promised, delivered, and a exceptional experience, right? And so loyalty, given that we're talking about human behavior, often looks very different if it's industry-based or subcategory, or even for a specific brand, and obviously for specific customer groups. So underpinning this whole discussion today is really the understanding of human behavior, right? Behavioral economics, what drives rational choice and decision-making, what drives emotional response, affinity, preference, loyalty that we all aspire to as a relationship, creating loyal customers. And a loyalty program is a big part of adding value to the experience of the brand, right? And finding new and different ways that are incremental to the core product or service, right? That drives that corresponding response from the customer. But brands really need to be careful not to lose sight of the bigger picture. And the loyalty strategy conversation that you're talking about, Natasha, we really orient toward 4 key pillars of a customer experience. One is the core product or service offering, right? The second is the experience customers have interacting across channels. The third is the communications to and from a brand. And the fourth is the brand itself, right? Your unique promise and how that shows up in the interaction with the customer. And so a good loyalty strategy will help a brand unpack kind of the empirical drivers of behavioral loyalty and emotional loyalty in relationship to those 4 key pillars, and will help clarify, the role of a loyalty program in helping drive the right response. So the things should work together. Loyalty strategy, loyalty program, absolutely symbiotic, but not the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you touched on it, Clay, and did a great job really encapsulating that answer and or that question. It comes into everything: philanthropic effort. What's your brand reputation look like? How are you dealing with customer satisfaction? You touched on it a bit. What does customer service look like? And then there's interacting with the brand in traditional ways, like the transactions, engaging with products. And then in a physical world, which, we aren't doing much of today, but then what is what is your store experience like? So it's really taking all of those different ways that someone can engage with your brand or have an understanding of what you do as a retailer, as a brand, and making sure that that's, dealt with. And then also, as Clay touched on, a program is just one element of that. And it's a way to drive that incremental uplift. So, wholeheartedly believe a program needs to be part of a strategy, but that strategy needs to be holistic of how you're going to drive that overall engagement and affinity for your customers. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you both kind of hit the nail on the head that, there are a lot of levers of loyalty that you can pull. A loyalty program is one way to aggregate some of those levers. And, kind of thinking about loyalty programs, I think oftentimes the way that, we think of them and our consumer experience is as points and punch cards, but that's really not keeping customers engaged anymore. So would love to get your opinion on, what should retailers be thinking about as they reimagine a program or reimagine their strategy?
Yeah, Natasha, one thing that we've really noticed over the last few years and have been advocating for is a little bit of the shift in mindset and taxonomy around moving from rewards and loyalty program language to membership. And the reason we like that mindset shift is that it really opens the aperture for brands on how they're thinking about what you just said, which is how do we aggregate value that may take different forms for a member, right? And give them a reason to become known, give them a reason to enroll, to be logged in across all touch points, right? So that we can personalize that experience and develop a richer relationship. So if you're looking at loyalty through this lens that's broader around membership, it invites, exploring different forms of value like exclusive services or value-added digital features and tools, or value-added content, or integration with some of the things Gavin and Martin were mentioning around philanthropic or cause-related activities. And I think if you look to an Amazon Prime or a Starbucks or a Nike Plus, like Martin was mentioning, I think those are 3 really good examples of programs that go a lot further, membership models that go a lot further than just points or rewards, and really serve as the primary enabler for a DTC strategy, right? This is really how they go to market. It's how they build relationships. It's how they add more value into the customer experience. And it's how they increase lifetime value, right?
Yeah, and if I could just add a little bit more to that. I mean, you mentioned Amazon and this concept of, the one trend that I've been seeing more and more of is around sustainability, where brands are giving customers the option of donating their loyalty rewards to a cause of their choice. And yep. I think Amazon started this in 2013, where they started Amazon Smile, which donates about 0.5% of your purchase price to a charity of your choice. That's knowing your customer, and that's knowing what they want and where they want to go. And all of this starts with kind of this good foundational data strategy, because you really can't develop the program without first understanding kind of what's driving the behaviors of your most important customers, and then identifying the features and benefits that they value most, and then being able to tier it from there. And once you get to that kind of solid foundation, then you can start getting uber personalized with both the experiences and the benefits you offer. And as I said it before, the expectation is there. I mean, the bar has been set that customers understand they're handing it over, their data over to you, and in turn they want take some of the guesswork out of it. So you have to offer up that experience or that opportunity to donate to a charity or whatever it may be, to really kind of become more sticky with those customers and to kind of reinforce the brand affinity that you built with them.
Right. Yeah. And one additional thought I would throw out there is, I'm sure we've all observed some of these evolving business models in retail, right? Advent of subscription. And when we talk about membership, we include, paid and free models under this broad umbrella, right? So it invites a much more strategic orientation toward the value-added nature of membership, thinking of loyalty as a service model for customers and asking, how does this serve the business? What's the right way to structure and format this, that's going to drive the greatest adoption and the greatest lifetime value?
I think it'll be interesting over the next year, considering how much is in flux right now, knowing what those offers or, service pieces of your program need to be. And I think, it points to Alex's point about having that underlying data strategy to be able to identify the right customers is going to be crucial, because we're going to see the need to test and learn and iterate over the next year. That's going to become critical for retailers and keeping customers engaged. Before we open it up for questions, just want to do a quick fire around the panel on, what is most important, the one thing that retailers should focus on right now for the coming months in terms of driving customer loyalty, or where should they start? So whoever wants to take that and go first.
Yeah, so I think, one thing, like when you think about, how you manage through times of uncertainty, right? It's really having that firsthand, read on the market and read on your consumer. So creating that feedback loop, and of course surveys are a part of that, but also if you have a progressive profiling element to your membership program where they're sharing their likes and interests as part of the either account setup process or the ongoing engagement process, that can really dimensionalize the typical survey feedback and help you keep your ear to the ground and, understand, like Mitch Joel was talking in an earlier session today about holding two concepts in mind, right? The rapid return to normal versus, folks being gun shy about going back to their old habits, and really, having a close read on that dynamic.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that a little bit and say, there's been a lot of good discussion across industries around the role that empathy needs to play right now, right? And that's been something that I think has been relevant, even in normal times, obviously, but is even more important for brands now to understand the context of the moment, right? And I think loyalty programs and membership, there's an implicit, and even explicit through enrollment, right? When customers become a member and they are expecting a deeper relationship, they're expecting more value, that opens the door for interacting in a more human way and asking your customers. To Martin's point about progressive profiling, I think this gives brands a platform to ask in a more human way what people expect right now, what do they need, what do they desire, right? And try to open a dialogue that will help them show up in context and avoid some of the pitfalls of maybe sounding tone deaf, given the reality of the lives people are living right now.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. And I think what I've been thinking about lately is if a lot of customers, and now look, if you've got a great loyalty program, you're in a good place because you can kind of reinforce these values with the customers you do have. But in this digital surge, we're also seeing up to 3/4 of the customers that are shopping online trying new brands, trying new experiences. And so that first experience that they have with you as a brand is even more important. And so think about that post-purchase journey for those new customers coming onto your platform or coming into your brand. How do you kind of reevaluate and take a look at that post-purchase journey that you've built and make sure it's reinforcing the values and the benefits that kind of initially drew that customer to your platform or to your site or to your store, and then really working with them from there and segmenting them into those kind of preferences that align with those values.
Great. Thank you all for, that last bit of insight, but we're not done yet. So for the last, 10 or so minutes of this, I do want to open it up to, those who have attended. Feel free to either post your question in the chat or come off mute if you're, feeling extroverted today. And, our team of experts is here to answer any questions you may have. So I'll give you a moment to do that.
And while we're waiting on some of those to come in, I'll say I personally have become a lot more impatient as I've been shopping more online, and my expectations for how quickly I get service or how quickly I get a response via chat or an email or even have to wait on a hold is really changing the dynamic of how I interact with brands. And those that have that really seamless interaction for me are ones that I'm going to continue to shop at. I mean, I was just looking on a brand that will not be named the other day, and their just PDP page for stock availability was really poor. And so I was going through the whole purchase journey and then checked out and realized the product was on back order. And I'm probably not going to shop at that brand again because they wasted 15 minutes of my time. So I mean, I know that sounds harsh, but that's kind of the reality of this new world order where customers have these high expectations.
Yeah, I'll second that. Just an experience that I had similar, and I was reaching out for a question, and it didn't seem like the handoff between the FAQs to the bot to the actual agent who I needed to speak with was concise. And yeah, very quickly did some internet research and found, went to a different direction, with my purchase. So yeah, I would say people are getting, given the amount of time we're spending in front of the screen, the behaviors are changing, and to Alex's point, the patience for a bad experience is getting the thresholds going down.
Well, I certainly have a question. So if I'm a retailer and, I have lots of things in place like a CDP, marketing automation, I'm sending emails to my customers and newsletters, and we have a blog. But the next step in my digital transformation is thinking about loyalty. And what's the first thing that I need to consider, not just on like a program, but loyalty in general? What should I be thinking about first?
Being a sort of a strategy-led consulting firm, this answer may not surprise anybody, but I think, to me, we still see a fair amount of brands who kind of jump down the track a little bit before they really understand their customer, right? And that may sound like a refrain we've all heard, but the reality is, many brands really can't answer the question, how does what are the drivers of loyalty across our key customer groups, right? So there's often some broad aggregate insights into maybe NPS or, other macro level measures that help us understand customer satisfaction. But when you really try to dig into kind of attitudinal profiles as well as behavioral profiles of customers by key audience, that's the key. We often find that there's a lack of depth of understanding. And So then if you're jumping down the track of asking, what should our loyalty strategy be? What should our loyalty program strategy be? Even before you get to how do we enable it through technology and data and experience, it really needs to be grounded in, what do our customers care about? What do they need? What do they desire? How do they orient toward the brand? How could we show up better, for them? So I think research and data science has gone, data science in particular has evolved significantly in terms of the sophistication of the methods over the last few years. And as the available behavioral data set that we all have, due to the breadth of digital engagement in the world, as that data set gets deeper and broader, the insights we can glean are a lot richer. And so I think many brands are still kind of catching up on how to take advantage of that, how to get the data into one place, obviously, is usually the big hang up. And then once you have it, how do you really mine it for insights that can help you make smart decisions around a loyalty strategy?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that as you were saying that, of one single source of truth for the customer. It's hard to have a good loyalty strategy if you don't know what their purchase behavior has been on one channel or the other, and are kind of rewarding them for behavior that they've already done. So if they purchased 5 times online but never in store, they go in store and they purchase, and you say, "Congrats on your first purchase." It's tough. So just that kind of single source of truth for that customer is going to be important.
Yeah, and turn back to what Clay was saying a little earlier about the membership mindset, right? There's an internal aspect in the the company as well, as you introduce a membership model or a loyalty program, and having kind of every function in the company think about things through the frame of membership, not just marketing. So the customer service function, and everyone thinking of the consumer now as a member, and that mind shift is super important, and can be transformational for companies as well, in terms of decluttering their message to the consumer, decluttering their offer, taking out some of the maybe some of the wasteful spend or opportunities they're doing with their messaging. So.
Yeah. And, to put a real fine point there, this, to your point about transformation, Martin, right? This often leads to some healthy questions about organizational structure, right? Yep. And how do we better align our organization behind the value drivers for our audience, right? And how do we remove some of the inherent friction and legacy organizing models? How do we organize around speed of value delivery for our customers? And, I think, we've heard and had a lot of conversations around how do you be a loyalty company, not just have a loyalty program, right? So I think that really gets at some of the much broader implications of this conversation.
Yeah. You can buy all the tools you want, but if you don't put yourself in a position to utilize them, you're not going to get the success you're looking for. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I do love that concept of being, a loyalty company, not just a company that has a loyalty program. And I think for consumers, it becomes very evident when you don't have, loyalty as an enterprise-wide strategy. When I'm in a top tier of your loyalty program, yet when I call customer service, I'm put in the same queue as everyone else. That to me is a really poor customer experience as a consumer. And then me as, a product marketer, I'm like, oh, their systems aren't talking to each other. Or they aren't working together to identify the customer across touch points. So I think that's a lever that, retailers have to think about as they're looking at loyalty team.
Hitting the nail on the head, Natasha. And we often will frame that as, legacy mindset is loyalty program as a marketing expense line item, right? And a best practice mindset shift is loyalty as a product, right? As a profit center, as a constantly evolving, feature backlog, right? That drives incrementality for the business and improves value for the customer. So I think you're spot on there.
Awesome. Well, I know we're coming up to time, so I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you additionally to our panelists. I think we have a lot of great insights here, and be sure to check out our Salesforce Pavilion here at NRF. We have a whole booth on loyalty, and I hope everyone enjoys their time at a virtual NRF over the next couple of weeks. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Natasha.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks all.